In today's episode of the Path from Prisons podcast, I'm here with Tylor Jones today. He's hailing over as the demand generation leader at Quantum Workplace, and they're transforming the way organizations communicate value of products to prospects. And we really want to deep dive into the way they're working over at Quantum. We want to deep dive not only what the guys are doing, but also deep dive into the growth strategy, how they bring success to the workplace, basically. So Tylor, welcome to the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
Very good. Yeah, give us a 360 overview. What is Quantum Workplace all about in your own words?
Sure. So Quantum Workplace, we say that we're here to make work better every day. Our software is employee engagement platform. So think about, employee surveys and things like that, and performance management platform. So things like, manager one-on-ones, cascading goals for the organization and things like that. We have a pretty robust, I would say, analytics kind of side to it that we've been building that's differentiating us in the marketplace today. And that's really what we're all about. It's employee feedback tools, right? And so HR and people leaders across organizations can make better decisions for their folks with more confidence.
Very cool. That gives a very good overview. Maybe tell us a little bit, what types of companies are leveraging Quantum? Like, is there certain industries, certain size that the company has to have so that it makes sense? Maybe tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So if I were going to define our ICP, it's really a little broad. We sell into folks in North America. Company sizes can range anywhere, usually between 500 up to 10,000 or so. I think our sweet spot is probably somewhere in between, maybe 2,500 employees. It really helps to benefit those HR leaders at the top, but also, those mid-level managers who may have, a team underneath them. So I would say about 2,500 or so is probably where we play best.
Okay, perfect. That makes a lot of sense. And what would you say, who within the organization is bringing the product into board? Like, who's the champion? Is that somebody in HR? Is that somebody on the operations side? Like, who would you say is bringing that over?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, we really talk to directors of HR, sometimes a couple levels above, up to the chief human resources officer. I think that they see the most, value in our product. But that's not to say that it doesn't benefit everyone in the organization. Think about when you're at work, right? Employees want frequent conversations with their managers. Managers want insights into how their employees feel, and then directors and other business leaders, they need to kind of understand the state of their culture in aggregate at any given time. And really, Quantum Workplace enables that in each of those stages.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Now, what would you say, like, how do people learn about Quantum? Like, what's you would say the typical journey of them, hearing about you guys, and then, ultimately also getting started? Like, where does the journey start, or what, in other words, are the typical client acquisition channels you guys leverage?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And, to give some context, Quantum Workplace has been around for about 20 plus years, right? A lot of folks have heard of a competition called Best Places to Work, which is fueled by Quantum Workplace technology. So I would say that primarily people that come to us, we primarily grow through inbound. We have a killer blog, so we do have a lot of folks coming and learning from us on our website through organic. And we've been around for a while, right? So we get a lot of interest from, we'll call them raving fans, people who've used our software somewhere else and love it. We have a ton of people that come in through previous customer referrals, people who leave a job and recommend it for their new place. So yeah, a lot of organic, a lot of word of mouth for the most part.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask, like, what role do you attribute to the website? Obviously, you work in demand generation. Like, how do you think about the website? Like, what role does it play in your eyes?
Our website is huge because it's just filled with, I really think that we're a thought leader in the space. And so, what's great is that we attract folks who are sometimes at the manager level, sometimes an individual contributor level, all the way up to directors plus. And I really think that our website does a good job of adding value, but also giving like clear pathways to learn about what we're doing. And we're getting better, we're getting better at that over time. But our website, because we're not growing through paid as much and things like that, I mean, it's really a huge lever for us. We spend a lot of time focusing on like growth driven design and things like that to, make it, better for our customers.
Makes sense. What would you say then, though? Because a lot of marketers we have on the show, they're always like very critical of the page in itself. Like, where do you see sort of like strength of the channel, of the website, versus where do you see, maybe room for improvement? Is there certain things you find on the web? Because every marketer is always, scratching their itch to see what can be done next on the website. How do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think when I talk to most marketers, it's like we talk about conversion paths on the website, and I think a lot of people, especially, I think probably for years past, have thought, we need to look at total website visitors. At what rate do those visitors convert? And it's that, sort of waterfall, and they'll try and trickle that down to closed won. I don't really subscribe to that. And I think that people are starting to kind of move away. I would much rather spend less time like focusing on how do I get everybody that hits my website to like what's the rate that they turn into a demo request, right? And really focus on what I think most companies are doing better and better now is just helping the people get better at what they do. So if you're an HR company, you need to help HR people be better at HR. That's your goal, right? For your website, for your blog, for anything that you're putting out. And it's that way with anyone, right? PathMonk, the folks that are coming to your website, if they're marketers, you trying to teach them how to be better marketers, right? I think that's really been the focus for us.
Very cool. And is that something, it's quite interesting point, actually, is that something that you form like other types of metrics about, rather than, you mentioned conversion rate, maybe takes a second step there. Is there new metrics maybe you see on the horizon, or you hear marketers talking about, that would be key in that scenario?
For me, I spend a lot of time focusing on our highest value pages, at what matters. And then on the back end, I'll look at how are we moving people who come to our website and maybe subscribe to our blog, right? They have no intent to buy our product. They just want to learn from us. What kind of pathways are we creating, maybe through interactions with them afterwards, to be at the top of their mind, or maybe even move them into what would look like a marketing funnel or a sales motion. For us on the website, I spend a lot of time looking at the highest value pages. And landing pages. I'm looking for engagement and heat maps and things like that, and really a lot less on what's the conversion rate on like the call to action.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's very, very interesting. I mean, a side gig, something that actually has been recently coming up on the podcast quite a bit, the cookieless future, right? Just taking a small tangent here, because it's just emerging in the podcast a lot. Is that something marketers in your industry already start talking about? Cookies going away from the browser, advertising being impacted. Is that, do you speak and hear marketers already about that, or is that more sort of emerging in your industry?
Yeah, I think, I hear folks talk about it a lot. I have had some conversations about it, and I think, when it comes to the way that we're really looking at it, I don't feel a massive impact. Now, I've had some times where folks come to the website, they decline cookies. I've got no idea where they come from. There's no way for me to retarget them, like that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, like a lot of people, we're running closer to like target account lists and things like that. And, we're able to see movement that we need to see outside of maybe needing to leverage cookies and following people all around the internet. I just think that marketing was probably transforming. Some of those cutting edge folks were probably moving into a situation where cookieless wasn't going to kill them. And now I think everybody's really catching up, because, here we are, cookieless world is upon us.
Very nice. Cool. I would like to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit sort of your journey as a growth leader in the space. So I'm curious at first, because there's so much content out there on growth marketing, on demand generation. You know, where do you personally like to read? What is your sources? Maybe your communities, blogs, experts that have a lot of learnings from.
Yeah, no, that's a really fun question. So I'll be honest with you. I mean, this is an honest answer. My career, maybe you hear this all the time, I've found a community on LinkedIn that I've never found. Like, I never was part of anything like that before. I learned so much just from the connections I have with LinkedIn. I'm a little bit stingy about who I let into my network. Like, I don't have high school friends, and I don't really have college friends. I'm really just focused on like other demand gen leaders and learning from what they're seeing. It's better because I can scroll through the feed rather than having to go to X blog or, all that. One thing that I have been focusing on a lot is copywriting, and I've been seeing it really popping up. So I think the blog is CXO. It's Peeps blog or his company's blog. Really learned a lot of cool stuff there recently, and been enjoying that. And then of course podcasts just like this.
Very good. I have some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
Let's go.
They're a bit of a surprise for the guests, so they're harmless. So okay. What's the last book you read or the last podcast you listened
to? Okay, so I read a book and I've read it like 3 times. So if that means anything, sign. It's called They Ask You Answer. Mm-hmm. It's by a guy named Marcus Sheridan. It talks about the 5 big questions that every customer has before they buy something. I think it's massive for software, especially some companies who maybe don't necessarily want to talk about price up front, don't want to talk about, if the customer is a good fit or not a good fit on their website, right? All these people that come to your site, they're trying to either qualify or disqualify themselves before they're talking to you. So let's do everything that we can to answer those questions. What are the reviews like? Who's it a good fit for? What are the problems sometimes with your product, right? Things like that that are outlined in the book. I think it's killer, and I recommend it all the time.
That's a great tip, especially given the fact that you mentioned you read it 3 times. That's a good proof that you actually take away something from it. Very good. What's one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
One single thing that my company, I'm reading it back because I think there are multiple things. Right now, from a demand gen perspective, we are looking at solving a bit of an attribution problem. Mm-hmm. And we're doing it without third-party tech. I mean, we're really just doing it within HubSpot to give us what we need. So anybody that's worked in HubSpot knows it's really easy to use, but you have to kind of make it bend to your will and manipulate it to do what you need it to do. And so we've been going through some testing in QA, like how do we, if we have first touch and last touch attribution, how do we get HubSpot to really kind of tell us what happened in the middle at scale? So like at HubSpot, you can go into Lucas's journey, right? But you can't necessarily get a meta view of trends of the journey and how that's been working. So that's a big one we've been trying to solve.
Very good. If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
No boundaries in tech. Golly. I'm running through my head. So can you clarify a little bit?
Yeah, of course. You have a magic wand. Yeah, you can do everything. No, you're looking at your daily work. What's the one thing you would fix?
I don't know if this is necessarily a fix, but I wish that I could open source. I wish that things like HubSpot were open source and I could go in and was smart enough to
see what you're saying.
develop inside of it. Yeah, do some developing inside of it. So less bending things to my will and more of just kind of making that possible.
That's a very cool one, actually. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
You know, we've got some really aggressive growth goals, right? I mean, like 2xing pipeline, you know, almost 50% growth year over year in new business, and demand gen is at the center of that. I think the biggest thing for me, we grow primarily through inbound. We close 75% of our new business is closed from inbound deals. So what's been keeping me up is that inbound volume and how I'm going to impact that.
For the very last question, right, I would like to do a little bit of time travel, if you allow. Let's go back to the days of Emory or Duke, right? Depending on which one you want to set yourself back to. So back out of, you know, back to formal education. So I'm curious, you know, now you're heading out of formal education into the world of marketing and business, or even, you know, University of West Florida for undergrad. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey in marketing?
I would say learn how to I would say learn how to present and understand the metrics that impact the business and not the tactics underneath those. And be able to communicate that to high, you know, folks at upper levels in your company.
Kind of goes a little bit to the metrics you mentioned, website visits versus the actual value that you're driving, how much, you know, I see what you're saying. Very interesting. Very cool. No, Tyler, I really appreciate you took time with us to be a guest on Pathway Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about quantum today, what's the one thing they should remember?
I would tell you this: work doesn't get better for everyone unless your organization listens to your employees and responds accordingly. I think Quantum Workplace helps companies all over the country do just that.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathway Presents.
Thanks, man. Path Monk is awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.